Hi guys, I'm Brad and this is the Great Hollywood Rewrite. It's the podcast where we take a look at some of cinema and TV's most troublesome titles and have a little tinker around under the hood. This week I've got Marcus with me. Hi Marcus.
Hey buddy.
And we are finally going to do it. We're going to have a look at it. We're going to have a look at Game of Thrones Season 8, the final season. I know Marcus has long wanted to talk about this. We both have strong thoughts on this final, somewhat hated season of what was a wonderful TV show. So season 8 was 2019, and that was helmed again by Beinhoff and Weiss. And there's a lot to talk about. There is a lot to talk about here. But before we take a look at why the Iceman didn't cometh and many other tales that let us down, if you haven't done so already, check out our website at thescriptdepartment.net. We're on all the cool social places. We're down with the kids. You can find us where you get all of your podcasts, all the good podcast places. We are on them. And now you can also buy us a coffee. So if you want to support the creation of more quality pieces of content like this one, you can go and buy us a coffee and help support the cause. Now, Marcus, Game of Thrones, Season 8. I know you have strong feelings about it. Can you condense them into a few sentences and tell me how you feel about it?
I'll do my very best. As someone who is also down with the kids, I can confirm that this was a troubling. This was troubling for me. The Game of Thrones, I think, was a cultural phenomenon, and it did sweep the world by storm. I think this is also a really interesting time to be having this conversation since the House of the Dragon series and has come out and done so well. I think this is a really interesting time. That final series had so much to do, and it had the weight of the world on its shoulders to try and bring this tale to a satisfying conclusion. So nobody, and I think it's worth prefacing this conversation by saying, I feel the pressure for these two people to conclude this in a way that was going to be satisfying. However, there were some very strange decisions taken. There were some areas that just completely went in the face of established character motivation. There were some structural decisions that were just frankly mind-boggling. It was a bit of a dumpster fire, this one, and I think that the reason that this is so worth talking about still, and the fact that we are here doing it, is because of the fact it was so beloved by so many. And I think this hurt some people. It hurt me a little bit, Brad. And I think that this hurt some people when it went the way it did.
I agree. I mean, I think I don't think shows or movies or franchises of a size where so many people love them, they almost certainly end by upsetting a large amount of people. Whether it's not Goodfellas, whether it's Sopranos, or whether it's like, oh my god, I don't want to go into too many of them because it hurts me inside. It's not the fact I don't necessarily like endings of things like this, but some decisions can swing it to being awful. And there were so many things to do, as you said, in this final season, and there was so little time to do it in. It's almost like you needed another season to get all this stuff in, and it was overly ambitious to try and do it in 6 episodes. Not that I don't think it was an amazing spectacle, and the amount of craft that went into it and the script to try and get it to work was incredible. But as a fan of the franchise, a fan of the series, I was gutted when it finished. I remember watching it like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, going, "Oh, here it is. These are the things we've been waiting for. They're all going to pay off." And even after it ended, I had that weird haze of, it was great. It was great. And then a few days after, I was like, oh, no.
Yeah.
No, there was a few errors
I
there.
remember that feeling. That was I had the same thing. I had we were having watch parties for this series, and we had people around our houses. A few of us sat there. We had a little beer on the go, and it was really really nice. And we were in the kitchen afterwards, and my best mate was looking at me going, "Yeah, it was great." And I was looking at him going, I haven't got the heart to tell you that I hated it, and that I'm upset by the passage of this. And then a few months later, he came round and we were sat there, and he kind of looked at me. There was one of those lulls in the conversation. He kind of looked at me and went, "I don't think I liked it." And I went, "No, neither did I." Like, and you have that kind of that moment where you
Thank
can't.
God there's someone
Yeah,
else.
exactly. Yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to talk about here. We're going to try and condense it down. I think we're going to come up with a new structure for this thing. We've got loads of ideas
Yeah.
because we've spoken about this many times
We
already. And I don't think we're going to have like a solid season structure, but we're going to have a direction to go in without a doubt. And I don't think we're even going to find ourselves changing certain pieces of it, because some of the set pieces in this thing were spectacular.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think, and I love that. I love that they've done that continually throughout this, and they've continually tried to elevate what they did. You know, I remember when the Battle of the Bastards came out, everyone was like, "Okay, well that's it. It's not gonna go any. Not gonna be any better than that." Emotionally, maybe it never was.
I don't think it was.
But visually, they were trying to step it up again and again and again and again, and I really did adore that about this series. We've got a few talking points to go over. I'm going to skim over them first, and then we'll go back and go through each one one at a time. So the first one is the amount of stuff they crammed in there in 6 episodes. There was a lot, and it kind of, I don't want to say cheapened, but it kind of made some of the big moments feel rushed, and we didn't get to feel them as we should have done because they hadn't been built upon. They just kind of happened because everything was happening so quickly. The second point is, I guess it's the structure, or focusing around the structure of the series. So the order things came in and how quickly they were resolved. So structurally, it felt a little bit all over the place. I think any fan of it has said, well, why was that bit there and that bit there? They could have switched those round. Regardless of what it was, that has been a conversation that I've had with many throne heads. Should we call them throne heads?
I think we should. I like it.
Throne heads.
Yeah.
The third point is the third point is the Battle of Winterfell itself, its placement and its conclusion felt a bit off kilter with what we've been promised. And we've been promised a lot of things in the show, and they haven't come through, and it's been heartbreaking. But it felt very different this time. It didn't feel like we'd been played. It just felt different. So we'll get into that as well. The Mad Queen debacle, let's call it. Daenerys cracking in the way that she did felt a little bit like a betrayal. And again, that bit did feel quite cheap, the way that it came through and the way that her character seemed to be, the reason she seemed to be cracking. It didn't feel true to what we'd learnt about her and the world around her. They deserted quite a lot of story developments that took many seasons to create. So, like the Jon Snow's heritage and Jaime Lannister's redemption and Cersei's prophecy and all these kind of things that just didn't seem to go anywhere. So there were a lot of things that they dumped, which again, with having to do so many things in 6 episodes, you can see why, but it felt unusual that happened. It felt very quick that they just washed their hands of those storylines. And then the final bit is how we left Westeros. It felt quite flat. It was, the wheel wasn't broken.
No.
Nobody got the king or queen they wanted. Our heroes just disappeared.
Yeah.
Either rode off somewhere or went on a boat or whatever it was. Yeah, it felt a bit unusual. And again, the argument for this show could always be, but that's what you expected to happen. But again, this time felt different. It didn't feel like the Red Wedding, which was a master stroke, because I didn't know that was coming. I hadn't read the books, and when that came, I was like, "Oh my god!" And I was really felt upset about it. And at the same time, I was like, "Well done,
good work,
well done, you." And this time, This time around, I was like, what?
Yeah.
That's not okay. So that there are a few moments of yeah, they deserted themselves in the script somewhere. So if we go back to the first
Mhm.
one, the amount of stuff they crammed into the final
Yeah.
season. What were your general thoughts of the amount of plot points and beats and everything within each
Mhm.
episode? What were your thoughts on the pacing in them?
It's inconsistent. I think would be the way to put it, because they did tear through it at a real rate. I mean, you know the conclusion. So they've got two major stories going on here. So you've got the White Walkers and the Army of the Dead, which are creeping slowly southwards, and meet at Winterfell. And then you have the succession and the conquest of the Iron Throne, the Game of Thrones, if you like. Um, and and I think that the thing was there is that they treated them as separate. An A and a B story should always have an impact on one another at some point, be it thematically, be it actually in all different ways. You want them to relate to one another, right? Otherwise you're just telling two random stories in the same space. It doesn't really make any sense. Whereas I felt as though the and this is probably the previous series, I think, that sets us up more than anything else. It felt as though the conquest of Westeros by the White Walkers was a distraction for Daenerys more than it was an actual thing that she felt was required to do, and it was
Mm,
important to take care of. And I think so. You're walking into this season with this thing of you already the conquest of Westeros by the White Walkers um, is kind of a second thing, and you hit the ground running with it, and they're like, right, everything's about this, everything's about this, everything's about this, and the whole time, the very first thing we see in the very first shot and the very first scene of Game of Thrones relates to the White Walkers, and those
mm.
beautiful, horrific artworks that they create out of um, the dead, and
Dismembered dead.
yeah, the dismembered dead, exactly. So you hit the ground running in this series, sorry, with them saying it's all about the White Walkers, and we hit the ground running in this series, going it's all about the White Walkers, and we're on board, and we're going okay,
Mm,
great, let's do it, let's deal with it, and then it's dealt with, and then it's done, and I think
yeah.
that the fact that they in terms of the plot points they're trying to get through here, it felt as though they were going by numbers. They were trying to deal with it. So and they were dealing with these things one thing at a time rather than interweaving them structurally and narratively. The character
Mm,
arcs, we touched on Daenerys there, like the way she went. It feels as though they knew where they wanted her to get to, and so they just made it happen. And it was a
yeah.
contrived plot thing. They knew that they clearly knew that Jaime Lannister was going to go back to Cersei, so they made it happen rather than it being a natural character moment. Arya and the Night King, I think it was one of those things where they were trying to do a red wedding situation, and they were trying to go, yeah, we're going to have her there. So rather than, you'd never expect Arya to kill him, so let's do that. Aren't we clever? But I think to answer your question in terms of the way they rattle through these plot points, is it felt like people rattling through plot points rather than the
Mm,
coherent telling and conclusion of a storyline. And I think that is at the heart of why this doesn't work, is the fact that there is a general feeling of disinterest, I think, in the actual conclusion of this, in the sense
it was very
it's
fast.
very
It was very
yeah.
fast. It's like they ran out of road.
Hmm.
They ran out of road, and I mean, they're Bainhoff and Weiss are amazing
Hmm.
writers, amazing writers, but they ran out of road and they ran out of material, I
Yeah.
guess, and they were out of the normal format of this show, which is where they had, like, with the first number of 6 or 7 seasons, they had the books to go
Hmm.
from, the actual books to go
Yeah.
from, and although we caught up with it, there was still stuff that had been written that they could
Of
read.
course.
I don't know if that's literally how it went that Martin was sharing bits of the manuscript with
Mm,
them. But then when we finally get to the end, that one's not even started
yeah,
yet, and there's just a few notes on the back of napkins, I guess,
yeah,
that they had to
yeah,
work from, and it affected this. It did affect
yeah.
it because we didn't get to see everything tied up in neat little bows.
Mhm.
Not that we ever expected it to, but there was very
Yeah,
little that was tied up in neat little
yeah.
bows. I think the amount of stuff in there, and again, we're living in a magical world where we can do whatever we want here
It's
on the
wonderful.
Great Hollywood Rewrite.
It's so
So I
exciting.
mean, another couple of episodes might last.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
So let's just say we're allowed 8
Okay.
episodes in this season. I mean that would help a
Hmm.
lot. I think with some of weirdly some of the minor character or medium sized character
Hmm.
deaths didn't really feel big
Yeah.
in this. It was quite unusual. So there were a lot of characters that died where had it happened in another season, we would have really felt
Hmm.
that. But this was so fast. It was so brutal. There was so much bang, 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 bang. We didn't necessarily get to feel those
Yeah.
deaths. And some of them have been with us for years and years and years, and we didn't get to feel
Yeah.
them. Likewise, if we move over to the structure, because this is kind of one part and parcel of
Mm,
the same point,
absolutely. Yeah.
really. If we move over to the structure, the idea that the fact that the Battle of Winterfell came, was it episode 3?
Episode 3, I think. Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
early. It
Midpoint
was
of the
early
series.
on,
Yeah.
and all so we weren't getting the feels when characters died that have been with us for
Mhm.
years, but because the Battle of Winterfell was so early, it was almost like the main lead characters were invulnerable
Yeah.
in this
Plot armor.
battle
Big, big plot armor
because
going on there.
yeah,
Yeah. Mm.
massive plot armor because they had got so much more to
Yeah.
fulfill. Their arcs had evidently not
Mhm.
finished, so it was like, oh well,
Yeah.
none of them are going to die
Do you know
here.
what though?
None of them are going to
The
die.
first thing I would do, speaking of character deaths and structure, the first thing I would do would be to kill off Jaime Lannister and Brienne of Tarth at the Battle of Winterfell. Like if it's
Brilliant.
staying there, they're dead. Because apart from anything else, there is a moment there where they are up against the wall, and they are and it's the all is lost moment. The end of the second act, everything's gone wrong, and they're up against the wall. They're dead. There is no coming back from that situation. And I think that by removing those two characters, we at that moment in time, Jaime Lannister has completed his arc in that moment. He has gone from the man who pushes a little boy out of the window in that very first episode to redeemed, honorable man, no longer a kingslayer. He has left his toxic sister girlfriend behind, and he's trying to do his best, and he's come to the right side of things. um Brienne has also completed her arc. She's knighted. She becomes Sir Brienne of Tarth at that point, and
Hmm.
she's completed her arc. And they find each other in the end. There, they have their moment, and you do in the last Harry Potter, you have Lupin and Tonks who are killed at the same time, and you have that wonderful image. In the book, it's a
Yes.
wonderful image
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway. The film is that's a different discussion, but that wonderful image where they are reaching for one another like that, and you have them go out together. You have them locked in a room. You have them, defending one another, doing the right thing, and you conclude their arcs
Yeah.
that way. So we are saved from the whole business of Jamie leaving her and her being brokenhearted, which is just totally unnecessary and against character. And we find them where they should be. But you kill
Yeah.
them off. So again, we then also, because to back up to what you were saying about character deaths, we do get some big characters die, but none of the big characters die in that first battle. None of them do.
No.
So by killing off those two, we also have our deep impact character death to really make the point that no, people are going to die. And I think it would be a really impactful way of demonstrating that. So that would be my solution to that problem.
Yeah. I think so, and I think having some If we did keep it there, I'm not sure we're going to keep it
Oh
there,
no.
but if we did keep it there, having Brienne and Jamie die together
Hmm.
gruesomely would have felt like a Game of Thrones
Yeah.
death,
Yeah.
the death that they
Yeah.
earned. You know what I mean? It would have felt like that. So I don't disagree with having them die like
Hmm.
that. Um, the placement of the Battle of Winterfell is the question
Yeah.
for me. Like, just the idea that it kind of just made the walkers irrelevant
Hmm.
somehow. The idea that constantly throughout this thing, the underlying message was the Game of Thrones, the battle for the throne, is completely
Hmm.
pointless because this is
Yeah.
coming. And then it came and they killed it,
Hmm.
and then they carried on fighting for the throne, and it just felt a bit
Yeah.
like,
It
"What?
did. Totally. Totally.
No, like, why? Why have you just literally taken the fangs out of the biggest, baddest bads you could have
Yeah.
had
For the
and
sake of
just got
what?
rid of
Like,
them?" Like,
yeah.
it
Yeah.
exactly. It felt like it was, ill-advised to have it in the wrong spot, basically.
I
So
agree. Yeah. I think it's
I think maybe we could consider moving it somewhere.
well. I have an alternative suggestion for you in the sense that I agree with you that the Battle of Winterfell being where it is as a final battle with the White Walkers is nonsense. It doesn't make any sense to be there in terms of structure.
Yes.
And it strikes of to and again to be clear, I say that in the sense that the original decision here that's the decision that's been taken here is clearly to prioritize the fight for the throne over the fight for the White Walkers.
Yeah.
In a world in which that is what the priority is, then it makes perfect sense to get rid of the White Walkers at this point. However, what we're saying is that
Mhm.
that's the wrong priority to have. Um, so so there's a few logical leaps that happen in this battle. For example, they put all of their army on the outside of the walls. What are you doing? That's nonsense. Like they have all of their siege weapons on the outside of the walls. Why are we doing that? They have all of their they send the Dothraki and their burning swords off into the darkness to just and it's a beautiful scene, it's a beautiful moment, but it makes no logical sense in terms of plot, character, etc., etc., etc. So we fix all of those things and we put everybody behind the walls and we have everybody where they should be if you're going to do a siege thing, and you have an amazing kind of sequence where, and this is in a world where we don't move it, stays at episode 3. And I'm just pitching you this idea as an idea. I'm excited to hear your alternative. um, so so they're behind the walls, we hear the dead all around them, and but we can't see them, and you're playing off all of these senses and everyone's terrified, etc., etc. And the fact is that they cannot beat the White Walkers at Winterfell. They can't do it. So have them lose. And that for me is the thing. So
Right.
you leave it there. It stays where it is, and you trick the audience. You subvert expectations. Everyone is expecting them to win that battle, and you have it so it looks as though then maybe they will until the very last moment. And you have Bran and Theon and all of that stuff still happens. You just have it so in the final moment where the Night King is approaching Bran, he then he walks into Jon's dragon, say, or Daenerys' dragon, whoever, swoops down, picks him up, and takes him off. And they
Mhm.
flee. They lose Winterfell. Winterfell is a burning, icy, like desolate place that has been utterly, utterly destroyed. Loads of people die. Um,
I like
you
that.
like that?
That's great.
Because then,
That's great. So the moving of the Battle of Winterfell for me would have facilitated the walkers reaching, you know, the Red
yeah,
Keep, for example. Like they needed to get there or near there, or at least just near King's
but they
Landing,
can do.
within
Yeah,
within eye
yeah.
shot.
They
So
can
to
do.
do that would help preserve the epic Battle of
Yep.
Winterfell. We could probably have some character deaths
Hmm.
that we desperately
Yep.
needed. I know we had like Beric and a few other people fall in this.
Sure.
Um, who else did we get lose in this? There was like 3 or 4 main
There
ones, wasn't
were,
there?
but that's the thing is that
Um,
I can't remember off the top of my head because they felt so kind of insignificant as deaths, and they
Yeah,
weren't that
there
big of a
was
deal.
2 or 3 like medium level deaths, but we could have some big ones, right? We
Yeah,
could have
yeah,
some big deaths here. So I think Brienne and Jamie
yeah.
would really help.
Because you then have that added element. So they lose the Battle of Winterfell. Jamie Lannister, Brienne of Tarth are both dead. They manage to evacuate Sansa, and maybe Arya goes to save Sansa. Whatever, they get her out. So you've got the main players are okay, and they have to flee to the Red Keep. So you then have an
Yeah.
army being chased by the dead that are the enemy of the Queen Regent, who and who they have already appealed to and failed to win over, and they have to go to Cersei, cap in hand, and say, "We need your help. You have to now do this." But the added complication there is that her brother is dead. The love of her life is dead because of them, as far as she's concerned. So
Yes.
you have this added
Yes.
element in there that she's not, because she's Cersei and she's selfish, fundamentally selfish. She's alone in the world now as well, and so now you have these people that she hates and that she fundamentally will not ally with. And the moment you think that maybe she's going to do the right thing, she finds out that Jamie is dead. And she throws them all in a dungeon or whatever she's doing. And so then you have Cersei in charge of this whole situation, and the White Walkers are still coming, and they are freezing the map of Winterfell down to the Red Keep, and they
Mm.
until eventually. So then you have a final battle at the Red Keep at King's Landing, but the final battle is with the White Walkers, and you can
Mm.
destroy that place if you want to. You can absolutely destroy it. But then you take your A and your B story. You have your A story with the White Walkers. Oh, actually, no. A story probably is the fight for the throne, actually, and then your B story with the White Walkers, and you bring them to a head together. You have them meet together at the end in a climax, and yeah, you can have Daenerys on her dragon, flying around, burning the crap out of the place because she has to do it now. You can have all of these things. So much of this stuff can still happen. It just has a reason for happening that is beyond
Mm.
the narrative conceit of what we had. I've
Okay.
talked for a while there,
Okay.
Brad. Sorry.
So if we have Jamie and Brienne
Yeah.
dying, that facilitates Cersei's rage.
Mhm.
It also closes Jamie's character, his development
Yeah.
of his character, and we end with him basically sacrificing himself for what he thinks is the greater good, which is
Absolutely.
where it felt like he was supposed to be going.
Mm.
And he kept letting himself down and he kept failing, and it felt like he was going that way. And if it had have just ended at the Battle of
Yeah.
Winterfell, he would have done.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying we have to do that. We don't have to do this hero's
Mm.
story, this hero's journey, sorry, but I don't know. It feels like we need to close a few loops with satisfaction
Yeah.
instead of shut all of them off with disappointment.
Yeah.
So I think, although it would have been terrifying and a tragedy to see them die, they'd have been together and they would have done it for the greater good.
Yeah.
And I think that could have been a nice a nice thing to happen
Yeah.
in a tragic moment.
Yeah. Very Game of
As
Thrones
far
as
as
well.
them go, yeah, very Game of Thrones. I love the idea of them legging it to King's Landing. I don't know how many of them would be left.
No, probably not many.
Would there be many left? I don't know. I mean, the idea of them getting to King's Landing, asking for help, and her saying no, I like that because it feels like they're still messing around with this battling for a metal seat when they're all going to
They're
die.
all gonna
All
die.
of them
Yeah.
are going to get wiped
Yeah.
out. So I like that. With her throwing them in the dungeon, Daenerys is still riding a nuclear warhead.
That's true. That's
Like,
very
I
true.
don't
Yeah.
like. There's gonna be a standoff of sorts. I think if we go that way, there will be some sort of standoff with the Dragon Rider. Who would she take it? Could she still take out the uh Euron's fleet
Yeah, I think that would be
on the
okay. Yeah,
approach?
that would be fine.
Because she's probably still going to get attacked, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say she
When they
probably
fly
will.
in there, regardless of.
Mm.
So maybe the death of a dragon
Mm.
as she approaches King's Landing is one of the things that's really just driving her over the
Yeah.
edge. I don't know whether we should go Mad Queen or not with Daenerys because it doesn't feel like there was enough work done to make her that.
No.
It doesn't feel like we had enough foreshadowing. Yes, there was hubris at times, and yes, there was like a delicate ego, but it never felt like that. It didn't feel like it was ever going that way. So when it happened, it felt a bit weird.
So
if we imagine that the Battle of Winterfell ends with a loss, so we don't have to deal with how off kilter it feels that Arya kills Jon's antagonist.
Yeah, sure.
And she's never had him as her antagonist, so we don't have to deal with that. Well, maybe later we'll deal with that because we've effectively moved the
climax,
the coup d'état. The climax. We've effectively moved that later on. So if we imagine that they've escaped, I don't know how many. I don't know how. What. I guess we need to figure that out.
Yeah.
How? In what version of this army is going to roll up at the gates of King's Landing?
I think
because we need there to be some army.
Yeah, I think you've got to have at least depleted by half. I think, because you've got your one dragon, and are we just going with one dragon left at this point, or are there two dragons left? Because Jon doesn't have a dragon.
I quite like the idea. I quite like the idea that there's something quite interesting that she would lose a dragon approaching King's Landing. And then she would have lost her brother and her lover, and she would have lost her child and her dragon. There's a
there's a duality there. Yeah,
in
that's
that.
nice. Yeah, that's really nice.
So that could be quite nice because then they're both angry and mad, and it feels like they're not going to get on
the battle. That final battle of the queens. Yeah. So you then have.
Yeah.
So in that case, I think. The question is, so Greyworm is a bit of an elephant in the room here, because I feel as though he would be the fact. I feel like he needs to die at Winterfell, and I feel like he needs to die at Winterfell because I think I think everyone should die at Winterfell. I mean, it is one of those things. The only problem with leaving that there and leaving that in situ is that you still have a few of these characters are going to have this plot armor. Which doesn't, which is a little problematic. But then, I think you can get around that by, the killing of Jaime and Brienne. But if he survives, then he's taking heavily depleted Unsullied back there. I think the Dothraki are gone. I think they have been wiped out. They are fighting in a completely hostile environment to them. They're on horses. The dead are pulling them down. They have just been wiped. Maybe a couple of them are like walking sadly behind the Unsullied, and maybe the Golden Company as well. We've got down in where are they? They were at Winterfell as well, weren't they? That would have been this big deal, this big deal situation. No, sorry, they were at the Battle of King's Landing, I think. So we can come to them in a bit, but they'd be on Cersei's team actually. So we then.
Oh, because they came in.
They come from there. So heaven, like monstrously defeated. They're a dragon down, at least half their army. They're tired. They've been walking for, traveling for however long. I think you need at least an episode of them traveling as well. That's another problem with this series, and is the kind of teleporting that started to happen. If we've given ourselves 2 extra episodes, we can have time to be to be traveling and to the feeling of needing to keep going because the dead are right behind us and they don't need to rest. Like they are coming. That awful feeling that it's just behind us. They are just there, and you could do some great shots of them stopping off in places perhaps we've seen before, and then you cut to a couple of like a day later or something like that, and the dead walk slowly past. You get that kind of vibe. Maybe they catch up with them a couple of times, something like that. So you can have an episode where they are fleeing Winterfell and they're traveling down and whatnot. And maybe they lose some people on the road. Maybe people can die of their wounds and things like that. And I think that would be maybe Greyworm should die like that, because that's such an unjust death for a character like that, is to die of his wounds rather than dying in battle. The writer in me finds that quite gleeful to give him such an unjustified ending in that way.
Yeah, if we're on the point of Grey, I like that would be a gut
It would,
punch that he would go in that
yeah.
way. What about Missandei?
Oh
Because
yeah, yeah.
that's a whole different thing then,
Mm.
isn't it? Like
Mi-
when is she captured? Is it season 6 or
Yeah,
is it the start of
I think
it
she's
is
gone
season
already.
6.
Yeah, I think she's already gone because by the time we get, yeah, because yes, she's already gone. I think because Greyworm is all fueled with vengeance and fury and all this, that, and the other. By the time we get to this series, I think so. Yeah, I think she's gone already. Um,
But doesn't she die in season 8? I forget.
I thought she died. I thought she died
Don't
in.
they
I don't know.
I thought they execute her in season 8.
Is that in this series?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure,
Okay.
like
I thought I would have put
I'm
money on it being series 7. But it makes sense.
no, I've just googled her now.
Yeah.
Season 8. She's
Season
in it.
8. Okay, great.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
she's there.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering whether Cersei would just keep her,
Yeah, that could work.
because I think the execution feels almost pointless. It doesn't really get anything. It doesn't drive
Yeah.
anywhere. I mean, of course, it makes the Mad Queen, madder, but
But if
I
we're
don't
pulling
know.
away from that plot thread, we don't need that impetus.
Exactly.
And that
Yeah.
massive
So
defeat as well is enough of an impetus. We did want to go there to do that. Sorry, Karen.
how's about what would stop? I'm just trying to think how we could separate the army from Winterfell to leave, and the walkers leave them alone. So they retreat,
Mhm.
right? So they retreat from Winterfell. Can you put, because they're an advancing army,
Mhm.
they're not trying to get Winterfell, they're trying to get
Yeah.
Bran. So how would it be? I guess it would be believable. I mean, there are that they take Winterfell, they manage to scoop Bran off in the dragon,
hmm
and then the rest of the army retreat
Yeah.
towards the south.
Because I think you've got
And yeah,
you've got in that a really compelling image of the White Walkers. There's that moment where he raises all the dead, and
mm,
maybe what you do is rather than having that mid battle, you have that at the end of the battle. So John looks back, and they're all just standing there on the battlements, just looking after
mm,
them, and then he does this, and they all stand, and then
yeah,
everyone else is running, right? So these the fleeing army are running and running and riding and riding, and they're trying to get away. The White Walkers can just walk, and they just have them walk slowly. So
yeah,
you have there an initial flight from the fleeing army buys them enough time to get away from the walkers as they slowly advance, rather than having them sort of charge down and things like that, which I think is not only a really frightening horror image, but also I think it strikes of inevitability from what of this advance. They don't need to run. They don't need to chase them. They are just going to walk slowly, and they will get there when they get there, and they will win when they arrive. And I think that is
yes,
a more frightening image than having them like charging after them.
yeah. So I love the idea that they're are hot on their heels. Like I know this went out the window a bit, but the passage of time and the distance they
Mhm.
travel, where like it's a 2 week
Yeah,
ride
yeah.
from
Yeah.
Winterfell to so would we have would we try and pass a week or two in the next episode where we're traveling down?
I
Um,
think
or maybe the dragons go ahead.
because
Maybe the dragons fly
you could
ahead.
take John, Daenerys, Bran, Arya, Sansa, or maybe leave Arya actually. Maybe she goes with the army, but you could have a lot of those main players go on Dragonback, and as we know from House of Dragon now, that's much quicker. Um, so
Mm,
they get there quicker. So you cut between them arriving at King's Landing and the dregs of this army fleeing
mm,
thing. And that actually, if Arya's with them, and you have the sort of the slow walk of that, it will give her an opportunity to use some of those skills that she's picked up and use some of her training and actually become something of a leader. If Grey Worm's going and dying en route back, she could step into a leadership role there, perhaps which would be an interesting thing for her character, I think.
Okay. So they're going to lose the battle.
Yeah.
The dragons are going to fly ahead.
Yeah.
Or maybe they regroup after a quick retreat and they go, we'll go ahead. You spend the next 2 weeks walking down
Yeah. See you there.
The capital.
Mhm.
We'll see you there. See you soon. They fly ahead. I don't know about how many people we should put on the dragon back because I don't know how many people can go on a dragon back. Obviously, it's
No,
a
I don't
big
know
back,
either. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
like, would it? It's a long way, and they go fast, and it's very high.
Yeah.
Like,
Bran's got to go.
I don't know,
Bran's got to
but
go for sure. He's got to go with them because he's going to be
Bran will
scooped
go.
up. And it makes
So
sense.
they're gonna fly into King's Landing.
Mhm.
They want to say, look, white flag, we need your help. Forget about the battle for the throne right now.
Yeah.
This is serious. Daenerys is on board with that. She's seen the horrors.
Yeah.
She's seen her dragon killed. So she's still got 2 at this point. She obviously it was the previous season. She's seen what's happened to her dragon, the ice dragon. She's seen the horrors of the White Walkers. She's seen him raise the dead. She knows everything now, and she's like, right, this can wait.
Yeah.
That is coming.
Final plea.
Is she going to lose a dragon on the approach? Is she going to lose one of the dragons on the approach to King's Landing to make it even harder?
I don't know, because if we lose another dragon on approach to King's Landing, then because this is one of those arcs, isn't it? That's a little bit abandoned. Is Jon's heritage? So maybe we keep the second dragon. We keep his dragon in play because then it gives the image of 2 Targaryens on dragonback approaching their ancestral home, which is probably more powerful. We also need that as just sheer plot mechanics to get them there, because you can't put all of them on the back of one dragon. So I think from a plot mechanic point of view, we need them as well. But I think it's worth having from the image of them approaching King's Landing. I think would be quite stunning.
So he's going to know at that point. They're both going to know at that point.
I think they do know. Oh no, they don't know. They don't. No, they don't. No. Maybe no, but we know. The audience knows, don't they? We know from.
Okay, yeah.
So it doesn't matter if they know. I don't think. Or does it? I don't know. What do you think?
Okay. I don't know. I think there are things we can do with his heritage which weren't done. Like, he's never offered the throne. Even though technically he has the right to it, and he's never offered it. Does it lead there? Do we lose Daenerys? And he's the only Targaryen left, or the only one that we know of anyway, within this version of the universe. Where do we want to go with that? Because that is one of the other talking points. The idea that they had all of these. I mean, the fan theory about R plus L equals J went on for so long, and it felt so important when we found out that was real. It was like, oh, they're giving us the thing that we thought we knew, and we did know it. Great. So that was huge, and then it just kind of petered out. And the idea also that it was the prince that was promised. Now, watching House of the Dragon in retrospect, that it was one in the same thing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It was, it came from a Targaryen, which we saw. It sort of gave us that impression in Thrones, but it wasn't as blatant as that is a thing.
The Conqueror's
that this
dream,
guy said when the Conqueror's dream, and it's there's something felt a bit flat about how they just abandoned his arc, and his development and the things that we learnt about him. So maybe we could lead into that. I like the idea of 2 dragons approaching King's Landing. That's I quite like that idea.
Because then you've got for Cersei as well, just as one quick point there, you've got for Cersei, not only have you got the army of the dead approaching, you have her enemy approaching on Dragonback and her army following as well. So you've got 2 armies that are descending on King's Landing and that are going to potentially, albeit one of them is coming thinking that it's in friendship, but Cersei wouldn't see it that way, would she? So there's another thing there to really twist that for Cersei to make that difficult. But yeah, sorry, I digress.
So they're met with hostility when they get there. Do they go in? White flags are waving, hands in the air. saying we're not here to fight,
Yeah.
and she doesn't believe them. She thinks it's a trick. They've got dragons in the dragon pit, and they're
Hmm.
terrified. They're like, why aren't you burning us?
Yeah.
What's happening? And Cersei gets a raven. She gets a raven saying there's loads of frozen dead
Yeah.
people on the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
As no, or she gets two ravens a day apart. She'll get a raven saying, "No, these guys have got an army marching on
Hmm.
Westeros. Lock them
Yeah.
up." Maybe she does lock them up because they're like, "No, we're not going to fight you. We need your
Hmm.
help." The next day, she gets a raven from the same location saying, "Oh my god, there's an army of the dead. We're all dying." Maybe there's even like a Monty Python style
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
at the end on
Yeah, the Raven's got a broken or
from the
an
Holy
iced
Grail.
foot or something like
Yeah,
that. Yeah, 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 yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So and then you get the second raven from the same place that says there's a
Mm,
massive undead army
yeah.
coming. We don't know what they are. Obviously, the language would be a bit different to undead
Sure.
army.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
There's a wave of corpses
yeah,
walking towards the capital, and then she understands.
yeah.
So then we've got this weird game where she's angry because Jamie's
Hmm.
dead. She's got Jon and Daenerys in
Hmm.
prison. They're not fighting.
No,
The dragons are just sitting there doing nothing, and she's confused until she gets this second
yeah.
letter. When she gets the second letter, she knows it's
Hmm.
serious. So when we have that, we're going to end up with Cersei, Jon, and Daenerys making a little bit of a pact to work together. They've got the army at Westeros, the army at King's Landing to
Hmm.
fight. They're ready. They've got Euron's
Fleet. He's yeah, yeah,
ships,
yeah. Well, does he
fleet,
turn tail and run? I mean,
and then
that's in character for him to just kind of bugger off, isn't it?
yeah,
Maybe he just
yeah. I
leaves.
mean, he how's about he turns tail and runs, and then shortly after gets ice dragoned to
Yeah,
death.
yeah, yeah. That's good. That'd be satisfying. Yeah,
That could be good
that'd be
fun.
good fun. I
Yeah,
like
he
that.
deserved that,
Yeah, he
wouldn't
would
he?
deserve that big time.
So Euron gets ice dragoned to
Yeah.
death. I always found his death was a bit unusual. I've just been killed by Jamie
Yeah,
Lannister. It's
yeah,
like,
it's a bit
what?
naff, isn't it? But yeah,
What are you doing?
Jamie's dead anyway
No one
now, so we
knows.
can't do that.
No one knows
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
You're saying it like it's a legacy that people talk
yeah,
about. No one knows it. You're just on a
yeah,
rock.
exactly. No one's gonna know. Yeah.
So that he would turn. So they'd lose the fleet, but they would have probably lost it
Mhm.
anyway. And they've also got this broken army approaching them that are their
Yeah,
allies, but they're also maybe they're being slowly nibbled away
yeah,
at the back by
yeah. Nice. Yeah,
the
yeah,
White
yeah,
Walkers. So
yeah.
they're literally the walking wounded.
Yeah.
They're
That are
literally being eaten and
being
transformed.
being added to the army of their enemy. Yeah,
Yeah.
shit, that's a scary
So you've
bit
got
there.
some weird.
Mm.
That's great. You got like a moving buffet of
Yeah,
soldiers that they're just.
literally. Yeah, yeah.
So we're on. Let's say we're probably, if we're going to take longer to get into things, we've probably taken 4 episodes to get to the Battle of
Yep.
Winterfell, 1 or 2 with
Hmm.
this. What's
Yeah.
happening? So we're now 6
6
in.
in. So we got 2
So
episodes
we
left.
then need a couple of episodes to close it
Hmm.
out with the big old
Yeah.
battle. And I think we're going to end up in a very different place, because if we have this massive battle with this really flimsy sort of trifecta
Mm. Mm.
of Cersei hating both of them.
Mm.
As soon as they find out about Jon's heritage, there's going to be strife between those two.
Absolutely.
So we've got this sort of like flimsy alliance going on, this axis, and that's what they've got. That's how they're going to try and fight this
Mm.
battle.
So then,
Bran can walk into the
yeah,
dragon,
Bran can walk into the
so
dragon.
that's a thing.
But then we also have
That's a thing that we didn't.
to play with. We need to. I'm just thinking of these other threads that we need to play with. There, so we've got Arya with her powers, her skills, and her training that has to come in somewhere in a way that isn't just stabbing someone in a way that anybody could have stabbed someone. And Bran as the memory of the world, and the because Bran and Jon both have that antagonist in the Night King. So that's going to be their main focus,
Mhm.
whereas Cersei and Daenerys kind of have antagonists in each other. So perhaps you have these two things playing off against each other, where I'm trying to,
Okay.
like, so because Cersei's going to betray them at some point, right? That's got she's got to do that. She's got to go back on it.
Hmm.
She's got to pay the price at some stage and end up dead and whatnot. Presumably, that's my thought anyway. I mean, what do you think of her demise? Does she have to die, or is it more fitting to have her locked up in a cell or something like that?
Cersei has got to go, but she is on Arya's list. So there's no
Oh,
reason that we can't have that happen because
yeah,
that'd be really satisfying. Like,
yeah,
whose face could she take? The Maester, maybe?
yeah. That
You
would
know, the
work.
one who turns the mountain into the
Yeah,
abomination.
the abomination. Yeah,
Like, it could she? Because he deserves to
yeah,
die.
absolutely. That would be great. Yeah.
We've still got to get Clegane Bowl
Oh
was
yeah,
just
yeah.
brilliant. Like we have to have that
Clegane
happening.
Bowl
There is no
remains.
way
Yeah,
we're not gonna have
yeah,
Clegane Bowl remains.
yeah. Yeah, big time.
Okay, so we're gonna try and direct Arya into finishing
Yeah,
Cersei off. When that happens, we don't know yet.
sure.
So we're gonna have she's gonna be with the army that's approaching.
Yeah,
She's at the front, so she's not getting nibbled
yeah,
away. But she's going to be in all the moving parts of what's going on with or sort of close to the moving parts of what's going on at the top. So she's going to arrive there. She's going to be close to Jon and close to Daenerys. She's going to work with Cersei when she has
yeah,
to, but the moment she finds out she's going to betray
yeah.
them,
He's
she
gone.
kills her.
Yeah.
And it feels like good old fashioned Game of
Mm.
Thrones killing.
Yeah,
Like that's what we want. We want some brutal
yeah.
murders. That's what we want.
We want a the mountain pushing a guy's face into a wall, just understated, brilliant death. That's what we need there. Um,
Yeah, maybe some eye gouges somewhere
yeah,
along the way. We need a few more eye
casual eye
gouges in this
gouges. Yeah,
season.
I agree. Yeah, Sansa
Yeah,
also
yeah.
is an interesting element here because she's got some beef with Cersei too. So maybe because Arya and Sansa have been a little bit at odds up to this point. So maybe that's something where they come together. Maybe it's a case that Arya actually doesn't um finish Cersei off. She gives that to Sansa. She allows it to happen using all of her skill and all of her training and things like that. But Sansa actually does the deed in the end. So kind of closing off her
That
thing.
would be pretty horrific, wouldn't
Mm,
it? Because you can see, because I know Sansa's taken a darker
mm,
turn, and she's been made strong by it. But I think having her younger sister hold Cersei
yeah.
down while she kills her,
Yeah.
she would be doing it and engaging in it, but she'd probably be
Yeah.
horrified by it at the same
Yeah.
time. So I think that feels good, and it would be the bonding of the
Mm,
sisters that have been pulled apart and put back together so
yeah.
many times. They were pulled apart at in Westeros
King's
in
Landing.
King's
Yeah.
Landing when she went off with a
Yeah.
hound,
Yeah. Yeah.
or ended up with a hound at one point because the hound stayed with the elder sister,
Yes,
didn't
he
he,
did.
of
Yeah.
the two? And it's there is there's a they're coming back to that place. Maybe it's in the place they got
Yeah.
separated. They finished Cersei
That's
off.
nice. That's really
They're
nice. Yeah.
bonding back together. You know what I mean? There's a cyclical
Mm,
nature to what's going on, and that's very Thrones.
yeah.
This whole coming around thing is very Thrones, which is I think why we ended up with Westeros just becoming Westeros again.
Mm, yeah.
It's the wheel go
The
in
wheel
the
does
original
turn.
city, which
Yeah.
just the wheel goes round,
Yeah.
and there's a Stark on the throne now.
You
It's
can't break the
just
wheel. Yeah. It just
yeah,
it just
it,
turns. Yeah.
you can't break the
Yeah.
wheel. So I quite like that the sisters would kill
Mm,
Cersei, and it would be awful.
mm.
It'd be like Joffrey level death.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But with stabbing, more
With
stabbing,
lots of stabbing,
um,
yeah. With the
lots
knife
of
as well. So
stabbing.
we can have because that's very poetic in its own way. That's the knife that that is now in the House of the Dragon as well, that Arya uses to kill the Night King in the
Hmm.
original run of this. That would be a lovely poetic way for Cersei to die by the knife that was
Mm.
of the yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that would be a nice way to go.
Nice. So we're sort of closing in on a finale
Hmm.
here. Whether Cersei dies before or after the battle is another question, or during probably
Probably
is
during.
a good
Yeah.
thing. There'd be a cover, she'd almost certainly go in Clegane Bowl because she wouldn't have the mountain outside
Oh
anymore.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
because then she could come in with the Hound. One takes one on, and one goes for the
Yeah, yeah,
other.
yeah.
Do
Oh,
you know what I mean?
brilliant.
It could,
Yeah,
yeah, it
man.
could be
Yeah, that's so
standing next
great.
to one another. That's what we want. That's what we want.
Love
Her
it.
and the Hound teaming up for one last
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
mission.
yeah. That's so
Okay,
great. Yeah.
so that's probably going to be our B story in the last episode or two,
Sure,
right?
sure, sure.
So we're going to have this happening. Very satisfying, also very
Mhm.
tragic and harrowing and stabby, which is very
Very
Thronesy.
stabby.
So there was a. I think we can wrap up the next 3 or 4 points. So the unfulfilled prophecies, uh, who sits on the
Mhm.
throne at the end, and all those kind of things in this
Yeah.
finale. So if we think about the prince that was promised
Mhm.
prophecy. So the prophecy was that he kills the one he loves to defeat the
Mhm.
darkness. You know, he forges his sword in his lover's stomach,
Yeah.
basically, doesn't he? He stabs them with it.
Yeah.
We don't have to go that literal with it, but can John sacrifice Daenerys to defeat the Night King? Because I think just the fact that he got stabbed with a Valerian knife
Mhm.
was a bit like, well, what about all the lore of the
Yeah. It's got to be
you know
more
the
than that. Yeah.
walkers and the forest people, and
Yeah.
like it felt like well, there needed to be some more prophecy in the defeat of
Yeah.
them, because I don't think we've got time to pay off what they meant or who they were. We know a little bit about who they were and why they existed, but this is a battle. I don't think we can go there in this, but we can use them to fulfill a
Mhm.
prophecy about
Yes,
them.
absolutely.
So if we imagine they've got a dragon each, there's an ice
Mhm.
dragon. There's how many walkers are there? 10 walkers or something, and then
Mm.
an army of the
Yeah.
dead. Um, and we've got Dragonfire somewhere
Yeah.
in the
Sure.
capital. Um, we haven't talked about Tyrion at
Oh my
all,
God. No,
which
we
I think was
haven't.
one of the
Yeah.
which I think was one of the tragedies of this season, because he took a back seat.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
so I mean, if you Cersei's prophecy there was that her younger brother was going to kill her.
Mhm.
That was the prophecy that she was given. And that at some point it was like, oh, hang on a minute, was Jamie born before her? Did she come out
Mhm.
first? Like all this kind of stuff. But there's no reason we can't at least give us a little bit of that.
Tyrion could be
Does
could be going along with Arya and Sansa. I mean that seems like Sansa being his wife technically, and that
mm,
there are um things that could work there. You could have Tyrion sort of approaching, and Arya goes to do it, and Sansa's like, no, 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 he's all right. Actually, he's okay. Like
he's all
he's all
right.
right.
He's all right.
He's
But
been all right.
maybe it's not as literal as is it him doing the blow. Maybe he gets them in
Mm,
there. Maybe he's sort of like one of the main mechanics of discovering that Cersei's gonna
yeah,
turn, because he knows she will.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
He
yeah.
knows she's gonna
Mhm.
turn. Like, I don't know if we're gonna get the full how he does it, but he's gonna be the mechanic, right?
Yeah.
He's gonna know how she turns. He's gonna get them access to the Red Keep or
Hmm.
wherever it is. You know,
I mean,
whichever room it is in.
yeah, he's got to be in the going a little bit backwards. He's going to have to be on that dragon back as well, because he's going to have to be there with Daenerys to negotiate their way
Right.
into that
He's the
situation. He's
hand.
the hand of the queen, exactly. He's got to be there.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
that makes
so
sense.
he's got to be knocking around. So he will be suspicious of Cersei the whole time. You get some lovely kind of Lannister back and forth going on there as well. And
Hmm.
so he could see it coming, and unbeknownst to us, the audience, he has tipped Sansa, and sort of. So maybe what happens is that um, Cersei. Ooh, maybe Cersei goes Mad Queen. So and you have this reversal. So the she becomes what the Mad King was, burn them all. And maybe her whole thing is that she's
Mm.
like, you know what, we're screwed. We can't win this. I'm just going to activate all this wildfire. I'm going to blow up the city, and everyone, all of my problems with it are just going to go. Tyrion gets wind of this. He confides in Sansa. Her and Arya construct a plan. They get together and kill Cersei before she can activate and set off the wildfire to do it all.
Okay, so does does Tyrion maybe give them access to the catacombs and the secret doors and stuff? Because I
Yeah,
think when he killed Tywin,
he
he
went out through that way. Yeah,
escaped through the passages. Yeah, so maybe he's literally opening the door
yeah,
for the Hound, Arya, and
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Cersei, and for Sansa to the mountain and Cersei,
yeah.
and he's like, good luck,
Bye,
bye.
guys. Yeah, and yeah, I suppose, and that echoes
Off he goes.
the murder of his father as well. The kind of the door open, things
Okay,
like that. Yeah,
nice.
that's lovely. That's lovely.
Okay, so that's a nice
Hmm.
little pivot there to get
To
Tyrion in,
get
who we
Tyrion
completely
because we
forgot.
forgot about
Who's
him.
like the
Yeah,
best
I
character in the whole
know. That's
bloody
terrible,
thing.
isn't it?
But I think that just shows where this last season
Yeah,
went. That he was not very active in this, and the bits where he was active felt a bit
yeah,
forced.
agreed.
So if you think about the final battle, this is the bit we've got left. So the
Mm.
final battle, we need Jon
Yeah,
to sacrifice
yeah,
Dany, and she's willingly
yeah.
goes to get the Night King. So Dragonfire doesn't kill them. That's
No, it
right, isn't
doesn't.
it?
No, we saw that
Dragonfire doesn't kill them. It has to be
Valyrian
the
steel.
Valerian steel. So
Bran's got to be
he's
involved
got
somewhere as well because his whole thing with being memory of the world and the three-eyed raven is underserved also in that
well.
whole section.
How's about John's dragon is Bran in this battle?
Okay, I'm into that. Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? So he's the whole walking into the dragon was what we all wanted, and it didn't really,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Sure.
didn't really come to pass.
Yeah,
So maybe Bran's involvement in this. So is Bran's on the dragon with
yeah.
Jon,
Bran's on the dragon with Jon. Yeah,
and um, Tyrion's on the dragon with
Dany.
Dany. So there's the four of
Yeah,
them. So he's going to be at least part of the negotiation. He's going to be seeing where they are and saying they're
mm-hmm.
here, they're coming, they're this far
Yeah.
away, and maybe the Raven message that Cersei gets matches up.
Oh yeah, nice.
So maybe his visions are. She's like, hang on, that's what Bran
Mm.
said. He said it was going to be in such and such, and
Yeah.
now I've got a thing. Maybe that's what gets.
Yeah, that's nice. It's nice to have them face
does
to
that for
face
her.
as well because of that first ever episode where he goes out of the window because that was obviously Cersei was involved in that as well. So that's a lovely thing to have them come back together
Right.
in that way.
Yeah.
And now she has to listen to him. Yeah.
So she's going to be starting to lose it because of the magic that she's seeing before her. There's dragons in her kingdom that just there.
Yeah.
There's a magic boy.
A magic
It's not boy anymore. There's a magic Bran telling her these things. Apparently, there's an army marching on her, and these people who have more rights to the throne than she does are asking for her help, and she's going to be floundering. When Euron disappears, we will see her crack. She's lost this huge thing that was going to help her win this war that is not happening. It's a different war now.
Yeah.
And she's going to start to crack, and that's when she starts to go a bit mad. She starts trying to stockpile all the burn them all. And that sets that story up. So that's all going to happen.
Meanwhile,
so now when we get to the final battle, we've got three dragons. One's bad, two are good. One's going to have Bran inside of it, which is going to be quite cool, I think, because they're although not by blood, they are brothers. They're what are they cousins? Are they cousins?
Yeah, they'd be cousins, I think. Yeah.
I think they're cousins. Yeah,
Lyanna Stark. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But they're brothers basically. But so they're going to be flying around, and Bran's going to be fighting. Finally, he's going to be fighting as a dragon, which will be a nice thing because we've seen him dragged across Westeros.
Oh wow!
On a sledge,
and you have that in the when he's in the cave with the original three-eyed raven. He says, "Will I walk again?" And the three-eyed raven says, "No, but you will fly." And so you bring that right round again, and what he's referring to is his part in the final battle where he flies as a dragon.
Nice.
You pay that off later. Yeah.
Great.
That'll work.
So I've kind of got the final blow in my head.
Okay, let's have it.
He's gonna have to put the sword through Daenerys, her stomach. He's gonna physically put the sword through Daenerys to get to the Night King.
Yeah.
because it is the prophet. You were fulfilling that prophecy in the way that it was said. I didn't think we'd do that, but
I kind of like that. Yeah,
kind of works.
yeah.
So how do we get that? How do we get them in that position? So we have to have dragons dying. We have to have dragons tearing each other to pieces because they have to be removed from
Absolutely.
the equation here.
Bran has to kind of
So-
deal with the dragon in dragon form, I suppose, and he can kind of
So Bran will fight the ice
Mm-hmm.
dragon. What about Drogon? Because he's kind of the big bad here. He's the big bad boy.
Yeah.
So do we lose? Does he get lost?
Maybe we have, in the midst of this fighting going on, we have Jon. Is Jon on Bran's back in this situation as Bran the Dragon? So he's
Yes.
there too.
Bran the Dragon, not Bran,
No.
not actual
No,
Bran.
he's not on his
That'd be weird.
shoulders, Yeah. So if Jon's on his back, so we've got this big fight going on between the three dragons, and maybe it's just as simple as they lose their seat, and they, the three of them, they all at some stage or another get sort of thrown from Dragonback, and then you have a situation where the Night King grabs Daenerys, and kind of holds her, and maybe he starts to turn her in some way. So you get the blue coming out from under his arm, his hand, and Daenerys is going, "Do it," and John's like, I can't do it. You have to do this. You have to do this now. At which point he straight through, and everyone for a second thinks, "Oh, he's killed Daenerys," until you realize. Because you could have the Night King kind of snarling away, and then he does that almost cartoonish moment of like, and then and he has that moment. So yeah, I think that's lovely.
We get that in. There's a dragon fight. They're spilled onto the ground. Maybe Bran's dragon and Bran the dragon and
Bran the dragon,
the ice dragon, mate.
So much
Bran the dragon. Do they all? What happened? Like, how do we get there? Does Bran the dragon die, and then the ice dragon and Drogon kill each other in battle? And as Drogon's lying there dying, and she's seeing her child die, I mean, obviously Bran the dragon would have been upsetting as well.
Unless we leave Bran the dragon in play, and we have the dead dragon dispatching Drogon. So we see as Daenerys is being held captive by the Night King, she looks up and sees her let's face it, favorite child falling from the sky in dramatic fashion, and that's when she looks at Jon completely composed and says, "Do it," because she's got nothing. She's done.
Okay.
So Bran the dragon stays in play, because then later on we have assuming that Jon survives, we have a Targaryen and a dragon left over to carry on.
To rule. Okay, so Bran the dragon gets dispatched but not killed.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Bran is thrown out of the dragon and taken out. The dragon's knocked out. Bran's back in his normal body, and he's out. He can't do anything at this point.
Maybe he's being approached by
he's watching.
Something like.
Maybe he's watching with ravens or something. Drogon's killed by the ice dragon.
I think so. Yeah.
He kills him, and she watches, and the ice dragon's just there because he's almost indefeatable, and he's got her, and she says, "Do it," and he stabs through her and kills the guy straight through her stomach, fulfills the prophecy. The dragon crumbles into ice, and they win the battle. In this time, Cersei's dead, and we end up with Jon on the throne.
I think so.
It's a bit Route One, but that's where we've ended up.
The only
we end up with Jon on the throne, and his hand is Bran.
The only other thing,
his hands can walk the royal dragon.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
and they can go off and do stuff together.
If we wanted to avoid putting Jon on the throne, which we could do, I think that everything. You're not wrong in the sense that it is a bit Route One, but I do also think that everything points towards that, and I think that putting Bran on the throne in that is just doesn't make any sense. But for the sake of argument, for the sake of let's explore it, what if it was someone like Sansa ended up on the throne? Jon doesn't want to be king. He just simply isn't interested in that. Tyrion couldn't do it. Bran it's just not. It's just not a contender. I'm still mad about that. Um,
Hmm.
then Arya wouldn't be interested. Who else have we got? Sansa, who began the series wanting to be the the queen of a king, is emancipated by taking the throne as a queen in and of herself, uniting forever the North and the South and the Seven Kingdoms as one. What do you think of that?
Okay, I quite like it. I mean, it's was she was she a queen regent at any point? Like,
Sansa wasn't, no.
no, she was
Queen in the North, I think, but
she was going. Yeah, but she was betrothed. She was to be betrothed to
Joffrey.
Joffrey, right? So there is some link somewhere
Yeah. There's some
to the
there's
Iron
some
Throne, but
poetic justice that she, but I mean, you do it in the same way, I don't hate the fact that the that the ruler was decided by a council. I don't hate that. I think it's quite a nice idea, in terms of changing the way these things work and, voting for a ruler
but
instead.
can John make her his heir?
Well, maybe, yeah,
He could name her his heir as his sister.
yeah,
I know she's not his legitimate sister, but he could
doesn't matter,
still
yeah.
make her his heir, his sister. Um, but it's yeah, he could name her his heir, and then he could just abdicate and go, "All right, she's queen
Yeah,
then. See you
drag her
later. I'm going off for
off beyond the
I'm going off
wall.
for my
Yeah,
Bran the Dragon.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Me and Bran the Dragon are off."
yeah. That'd be pretty cool. I think it'd be nice. I think Sansa, as much as I think the logical thing to do would to have John be to have John on the throne, because he doesn't, but simply because he doesn't want it, and someone says at some point, the fact that you also is something along the lines of the fact that you don't want it is probably what would make you a good king or something like that. I can't remember the exact quote, but that is a
Yes.
thing. So
Okay.
I think that makes the most sense. But I do think if we wanted an alternative route, I think Sansa makes the most sense.
Okay. So I think going the Sansa route just it feels better than John sitting on the throne
Let's
because
do
he
it.
wouldn't want it.
Yeah, yeah. Let's do it.
So okay, so I think there are still quite a few loose ends here, but I think we've got a structure that we could write out of. If we were to sit there and plan it
Yep.
out, we could then write out all the sub stories
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
everything, and the B stories and the C stories, and close a lot of the loops that we didn't because we were blocked by how much stuff was going on.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to try and
All
recap,
right.
jump in if I miss
All right. Let's
anything.
do it.
So we're going to go for an eight episode
Hmm.
season. Like we just need more
Yeah.
time. We are going to have the Battle of Winterfell up front, but it's going to be 3 or 4 episodes in. We are going to lose the battle, but we're also going to lose Jaime Lannister and Brienne, and they're going to die together, and their arcs will be complete, or at least Jaime's arc will be
Yeah.
complete. I think Brienne's will be incomplete, but there will be a tragedy in there on a character level that will make this work.
She has
Um,
achieved something in the sense that she has been knighted the night before, and she's allowed herself to kind of, she's been
mm,
recognized as
yeah,
a warrior in her own right rather than a yeah. So yeah.
right, exactly. That's great. She's achieved the thing that was unachievable,
Yeah.
and then she dies, which is very
Yes.
Thrones. They lose the Battle of Winterfell. Bran walks into Jon's
Hmm.
dragon, and grabs
Yeah.
himself. And and they leave. The army retreats. Um, the Night King takes the dead, and they march behind. For 2 weeks, march behind the retreating army from
Hmm.
Winterfell, who are going to. They're going to King's
Yeah.
Landing. The two dragons, ridden by Jon and Daenerys, with passengers Tyrion and
Hmm.
Bran, fly to King's Landing with white flags are
Hmm.
flying. They say, "Look, this is what's going on. We do not want to fight you. Our dragons are sitting right there. We could have burnt the place to
Yeah.
the ground. This is what's happening. Please believe us." She doesn't believe them. She gets a raven saying, "There's a Winterfell army coming
Hmm.
this way. Um, they're marching on the
Yeah.
capital." And she goes, "You're lying. Your army's on the
Hmm.
way." She locks them
Yeah.
up. They still don't
Yeah.
fight.
You killed my brother as well.
And
She
then
finds out about
you
Jamie.
kill my brother.
Yeah.
Tyrion explains that he's gone. She's not
Hmm.
happy. Tyrion's like, "This isn't good." She gets another raven the next
Yeah.
day that says, "There's a thing behind this army, and it ain't
Yeah,
pretty."
yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah. Yeah, totally.
so you get that happening. She understands that there's something else happening now. Bran confirm. It's confirmed prior to this by Bran's vision. He says they're going to be upon this place at this
Mhm.
time, and it's confirmed by the Raven. She's like, okay, there's something magic happening
Yeah.
here. When the armies start to arrive on the horizon, Euron sees the ice dragon and he tries to leg
Mhm.
it. They're burnt, maybe in the black water,
Yep.
maybe they're burnt to bits right
Yeah, yeah.
there.
I think that's fine.
Um, the they Cersei decides that okay, let these guys out. They form a weird trifecta of an
Mhm.
alliance. Tyrion does not trust her. She's starting to crack. When they start to get it all happens very quickly. They have to get out and get on the dragons. They have to defend. They have to command the army. During this time, Cersei's lost it. She wants to burn the entire place
Mhm.
down. She's like, if I can't have it, no one can. Burn them
Also,
all.
we can have in there redemption for the Golden Company, who were shown to be pretty flimsy in the original Battle of King's
Mm-hmm.
Landing there, so they can be there too, and just given a better show of things, and you know,
Yeah, they're going to be under command of whoever's in
yeah,
charge of King's Landing, and quite quickly that becomes Jon and
yeah,
Daenerys.
absolutely,
And they are told that they are part of the trifecta. They have to follow orders. So when she goes crazy and she starts to stockpile um,
wildfire.
the stuff that's the wildfire, that is then people know that and they're like, oh my god, like she's gone crazy. What do we
Mm,
do? And they follow the others. They follow the other part of the leadership
yeah,
trifecta. Tyrion gives access to the Hound, um, Sansa, and Arya. We get Clegane Bowl,
Clogaine
Arya and
Bowl.
Clegane Bowl, Arya and Sansa horrifically finish off
Mm,
Cersei. The Battle of King's Landing is bloody and long. It looks like it's being sacked. It is being sacked. The dragon battle between the three dragons, Daenerys, Jon, and the Night King goes on, and they are de-dragoned. The dragons fight between one another as they have no
mhm.
riders, as we've seen they can do in
That's the
House of the
dragon.
Dragon,
Yep,
which is
yep.
wonderful. Bran is de-warged. He's knocked out and taken out of the thing. The ice dragon kills Drogon. In this moment, the in the hand-to-hand battle, which is about to commence, he's got hold of Dany. The Night King's got hold of Dany. He's freezing her. He's like, just do it. She's like, do it. I don't want to be one of them. He runs the sword through her, killing him. Bit of a cheesy trope here, but it is the prophecy that we were
Mhm.
promised. He kills the Night King. The army crumbles, the dragon crumbles, and we are left with the heir to the throne being Jon
Mhm.
Targaryen. This is confirmed by
Sam.
again the confirmation of this. We've got Sam,
Yep.
who could do it. We've got Tyrion. Again, I don't really know, but maybe it has to be Sam.
Bran as well, though. Bran
Maybe it
knows
has
as well. So there's
Sam and
yeah,
Bran, Sam and Bran, and we end up with Jon naming his heir as his
hmm
sister from
yeah,
Winterfell as Sansa, and he
mm,
abdicates and he leaves her with as a
mm,
queen, and he flies off on the
yeah.
dragon. He can have regular visits from Bran
Bran the dragon.
in the
Yep, yep.
dragon, Bran the dragon, and we end up with Tyrion as Hand
I think
again.
so. Yeah, I think it's the natural
Yeah,
place for him to
Tyrion
be.
as
Yeah,
Sansa's Hand.
yeah.
Arya departs. I don't think Arya would hang around,
I think she can still go find out what's
and we are
west of
left.
Westeros. I think that's fine. Still, that's a nice conclusion for
Yeah,
her. Yeah.
we are left with the Stark Queen of the
Mm.
South of
Oh,
Westeros,
everything.
I
Yeah.
guess. She unites it, and that's where we end up. And we are left with one dragon left with a Targaryen riding it somewhere in Westeros or
hmm
Essos. He's around,
Yeah.
um, but he's an ally of the Queen.
Mm.
and we are left with a functioning, much as we were in the season 8, but we're left with a functioning Westeros, with a monarchy that is, I guess she's earned that in a way through what she's done. It's earned rather than inherited. Although the wheel is still there, it's a very different wheel, and it's potentially a united wheel.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
And I think that's where we end up. There were lots of things we haven't tied up here, but I think there's enough of a central thread to write off there.
I think so, and I think there's room in there to tie those other things up. I think as a structure, for me, the biggest problem that I had with the series as is was that structure and that kind of fundamental, you know, the fundamental decision to make the priority the throne rather than the White Walkers. And I think that in the way this newfound thing that we've done here, I think it ties those two priorities together, and I think it makes it kind of a little bit more coherent as a story. So yeah,
Nice.
I think it's good stuff. I think it's good stuff, Brad. I think we did it.
I think we did it. I think we did it, dude. I think we got there.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a million alternate Game of Thrones season 8s out there on the internet.
There are.
I think ours probably has a few component parts of many of them
so.
because it's what people wanted to see. So I think it's always interesting to sort of debate these things and see where they could go. It was disappointing how it ended, but I do love a Game of Thrones.
It's still good.
It's still amazing. So it was no slight on the achievement of what we did get for so many years. It was such good TV, and I'm glad we have House of the Dragon now to enjoy for another few years. So thanks for that, man. That was a lot of fun. And thanks everyone for listening. This has been the Great Hollywood Rewrite. Check us out at our website at thescriptdepartment.net. We've got a lot of interesting stuff going on there. We've got a raft of international screenwriters doing various exciting things. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. Oh yeah, if you're listening to this on a podcast, please nip over to YouTube. We're getting closer to 1,000, the magical 1,000 subscribers. So if you're not already subscribed on YouTube, go over there and subscribe to us. It would be a huge help. We always enjoy doing these things, and we always enjoy your suggestions of what you would like us to look at next. So if you have any thoughts on TV shows or movies that you would like us to do a rewrite on, leave it in the comments, get in touch with us direct, just let us know. We look forward to hearing your suggestions. See you soon.